Thanks for tuning in to Proline TV for some more NASCAR and F1 talk. Matter of fact, we plan on this potentially being the last official show of 2025, talking about auto racing. It is possible, however, slight, that we will return because it looks like the F1 season is all but over, even though there's still a few more races to go. The championship is it's pretty much a foregone conclusion at this point, isn't it, CJ?
It's still mathematically open, but for all intents and purposes, it looks like it's Lando Norris's to lose at this point. Brazil was effectively Verstappen's last chance of really coming back. Verstappen could be eliminated as soon as this weekend in Las Vegas, and then that would just leave the battle between Norris and teammate Piastri, and Piastri had a disastrous Brazil, which left him in a further hole against Norris. So what it would really take for Norris to lose it would be for him to throw it away these last three races, plus the sprint in Qatar with Piastri and or Verstappen winning out, which just isn't likely. We've seen that all season. It's been relatively competitive, and Norris and Piastri, even though they've each had their mini slumps, typically they come back, they end up on the podium, they score points. So for all intents and purposes, it's effectively Lando Norris's to lose at this point.
So we certainly hope that anybody that watched our broadcasts over the last month, we warned you not to get carried away with Max. Hopefully you didn't. Okay, so we're going to preview the race in Las Vegas in just a little bit. Before that, we really haven't taken a lot of time to talk about the lawsuit, the NASCAR lawsuit, which the case begins in early December. Was it the 2nd?
December 1st, actually.
So 1st. Okay. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly how that unfolds. This is going to be a major sports ruling at some point. And if the two sides do not come together before December 1st, it's going to be left into the hands of the court system. So let's start, first of all, with just, again, I would hope that our viewers would be up to speed on what's going on. But just in case, because we do have a lot of our viewers that are just dialed in on wagering on races and things of that nature, and they don't have time for politics, news, lawsuits. So let's give them a little bit of a background on exactly what's going on here. So I'll obviously hand it over to you.
So everybody remembers the charter system was introduced by NASCAR. That was several years ago.
2016, I believe, something like that.
Yeah, several years ago. So it's been around, but it was due to be renegotiated. It was renegotiated in the off season last year. There were back and forths between the teams and NASCAR. Ultimately, all but two teams ended up signing before the end of the season. You had two teams that didn't, and it was FRM, so Front Row Motorsports, as well as 23XI, Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan. They disputed NASCAR's take it or leave it approach, and they claimed antitrust violations and that NASCAR was using their dominance or monopoly over NASCAR racing to influence favorable terms to them at the expense of the team owners.
Let's pause it there, because let's go right to the source. This is, as you can see here, Jeffrey Kessler, co-executive chairman of Winston and Strawn LLP, Front Row Motorsports representative.
Thank you very much, Bill, and good morning to everybody. I have spent much of my professional career bringing antitrust actions to different professional sports to try to create a fairer, more beneficial, more innovative system for those sports that benefits all of the stakeholders in those sports. There has never been a case that I have found that is as egregiously anti-competitive as this one. Here we have a sport where one family has basically used its power to create an absolute monopoly for the benefit of that family, as opposed to being for the benefit of the teams, the drivers, the sponsors, the broadcasters, the fans. This monopoly did not happen because of superior product, because of the family's investment, because of their innovation. This monopoly has happened because of illegal monopolistic practices. When there was a competitor, that competitor was acquired. When there were tracks that would enable another competitor to be formed, those tracks were acquired, or they were subject to agreements that prevented them from being available to any other competitor.
That, I think, is the gist of it, of what you were saying there, CJ. And okay. By the way,
maybe I should have been a lawyer.
Yeah, well, you might be better off if you were. So anyway, by the way, I should have said this before the show. I have been experiencing some blips in my internet service, so if I happen to go out, it's your show until I get back.
All right.
So don't just sit there. Okay. So that sounds exactly like what we know and what we've kind of understood all along. Is there, get the NASCAR side of things, if you can.
So NASCAR then alleged with FRM and 23XI that there was collusion amongst the teams, and they weren't bargaining in good faith, negotiating in good faith on the charter system, et cetera, et cetera. So effectively, 23XI and Front Row Motorsports said this is unfair. We think you're being a monopoly. We want something more fair for us as owners. And then NASCAR counterclaimed saying, well, you guys were negotiating in bad faith and you were colluding to use your power against us. Over the past several months, actually all season, this has been going on back and forth. We are now to the point, in a nutshell, where all other counterclaims at this point on both sides have been thrown out and ruled that they're not part of this suit. The last remaining thing is the core of the issue, which is whether or not in these negotiations for this charter system that was just renegotiated for 25 and beyond, did NASCAR use its competitive positioning in the industry as the monopoly of NASCAR, as the teams would put it, to gain an unfair advantage and unlevel the playing field in their favor. So that is the sole topic that the jury, if it goes to trial, if there's no settlement before then or before it actually goes to a decision by jury, that is the sole decision that the jury will be adjudicating on over the next 10 to 12 days, of however long this trial lasts. It's expected to last about 2.5 weeks. That's all the other counterclaims, all the other pieces have been thrown out, and the sole remaining topic of lawsuit is whether or not NASCAR acted in bad faith as a monopoly of stock car racing.
To the average fan like myself, it seems that this is going to be like, if I was NASCAR going into this trial, let's just put it this way. If I'm NASCAR, I don't want this going to trial
100%.
Because I think they're going to lose.
I think they're going to lose. I think, yes, we've seen decisions. Number one, the judge has actually said in the past week or two that he does not see a clear-cut winner, which is something that was in the news a couple of weeks ago, where both sides were asking for a summary judgment, which essentially means that the judge reviews just the facts of the case and says yes or no, there's a clear-cut winner, and this would be the decision. The answer to that was no. We've seen motions back and forth trying to posture in the witnesses that each side will call, trying to gain an advantage for the jury process that will kick off on December 1st. The most recent actually coming today, which was, or maybe it was yesterday, within the last 24 hours, certainly, of NASCAR petitioning the court to not allow Hamlin and Jordan to be in the courtroom during the testimony of other witnesses. So that's, right now they're just jockeying to be able to make sure that they've got the best positioning for when it goes to trial. I think it's very complicated, has been very complicated up until this point, but now that we're down to the sole remaining decision and the sole remaining open item, which is really the root cause of all of this to begin with, I think it can be pretty clear cut for the jury to make an opinion on that as each side presents its case. Based on what I see and everything that I've seen, NASCAR pointed to IndyCar as a potential competitor. Hey, if you don't like our charter system, you can go and race IndyCar then. But you just played the clip from the lawyer for FRM and 23XI. We all know, as followers of the sport, you can't just up and switch from NASCAR to IndyCar. That's not realistic. The different sponsors, different teams, different skill sets, different tracks, et cetera, et cetera. So again, I'm with you. I think that if I'm NASCAR, I don't want this to go to a decision because I think NASCAR is frankly going to lose. And if they do lose, that's going to require a wholesale reset and restructuring of the charter system. NASCAR stands to lose a ton of control of the sport, a ton of money, and a ton of clout. And I think it's a very bad outcome for NASCAR if they let this go all the way and it ends up being a ruling against them. 23XI, FRM, I think they're in a strong position here. Just my personal perspective.
Is there, do you have any idea from what you've heard, what NASCAR is going to pitch to the jury if it goes that far? What's going to be, because they can't, like you just said, what they've said so far, from what I've heard, it can't be what they're going to tell the jury.
Yeah, I think everything that they've tried to argue so far that I am privy to, that I've been able to read and research, has been arguing out of both sides of their mouth to say that, yes, in this case, we can do this, but in this other case, we can't. But it's, two sides of the same coin. So if you put that in front of a jury, you're in one side arguing that you should be able to do something, but then in another circumstance that is virtually the same, you're arguing that your competitor shouldn't be able to do something. And I think a jury is going to see through that and say that you're mixing apples and oranges, and you are in fact in a position of power here. All of those are what I've seen from NASCAR so far. So, I know I have not seen, and I know the world yet has not seen, what exactly either side is going to fully argue. Maybe a little bit more on 23XI and FRM, but I don't know what NASCAR has up their sleeve. But based on what I've seen so far, it's pretty inconsistent, and I think a jury will ultimately end up ruling, as I said.
Do you know where the trial is being held?
I believe it's in the Carolinas, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. So
I think it's in Charlotte, but I may be wrong.
And just like a lot of other cases that go to the jury, a lot of this outcome is going to depend on the actual jurors. And I just can't imagine that NASCAR, how can they believe that there's not going to be at least one minimum in the area of North Carolina, NASCAR country, that you're not going to find one sympathetic to the side of which I think is this. Honestly, I think is the side of whether it's 23XI or the charters, the anti-charter system, just the fan. Because how many times have we talked over the years about just how much power NASCAR has, and it's just and if they make the wrong decisions with all that power, it gives us the product we have today, which is a very underwhelming product.
Yeah, completely agree. And just to confirm, it is in the U.S. District Court, Western District of North Carolina, which is in Charlotte. So it is in the heart of NASCAR country. And I think to your point, that's been a lot of this wrangling back and forth that we've seen over the past couple of weeks. I just mentioned within the past 24 hours, NASCAR petitioning to not have Hamlin or Jordan present to hear other testimony. But last week, the big news was about whether or not Rick Hendrick or Roger Penske would get a full deposition, because they have trade secrets, do they not? They are competitors. They are all competitors. And when you go into a financial trial and you're trying to argue whether or not financial harm has been done to you, and you have comparison of like companies across, and there are two major competitors in Penske and Hendrick that were called as witnesses or put on the list for as witnesses by NASCAR. If you open them up to a full deposition, then you have FRM and 23XI that could potentially gain trade secrets from private companies through the deposition process. So I think another risk that NASCAR runs just by allowing this to go all this way is the fact that a lot of the secrets that we've speculated about over their negotiating power, their decisions, and what drives why we get the bad competition on the track type of thing, that's all going to become public. And I think a lot of the financial situations of specific teams and perhaps deals that teams have gotten in the past are going to end up being public as well. So that can open a giant Pandora's box that ultimately changes NASCAR going forward and their model going forward as well. So a lot of things at risk, I think, for NASCAR by allowing this to go to trial and calling the witnesses that they did.
So what does it look like? Like, what is it that NASCAR could give 23XI? What could they give them?
It's money. Yeah,
that's all it is.
It's a bigger share of money, and I think it's probably also a bigger voice in decisions that are made. So the competition package, the schedule,
okay,
things of that nature.
They don't want this monopoly anymore. It's like, right. We need to be part of the company. We need to be part of the business plan. Sort of like what you have with the NFL. Just give them one example. You've got a commissioner and you have 32 owners. So if this was NASCAR, you would have the NFL would be a company, and they wouldn't have a commissioner, and they wouldn't have 32 owners. They would just be the NFL, and they would be saying anything they want to do, and it would be, whatever says goes. But that's what NASCAR wants. NASCAR wants a seat at the table. So they want however many owners there are. There'll be NASCAR owner meetings every year where you'll have 20 different owners, just like you get in the NFL, and you'll have like a commissioner and he'll oversee the owners. And that's what basically is what's holding NASCAR back from the 21st century.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, NASCAR makes every decision. They consult. Certainly, they consult the drivers, they consult the participants, they consult the team owners. But the team owners' perspective, FRM and 23XI, is that, hey, you're not really putting your finances at risk. We are the ones that are funding the cars and drivers that show up every single weekend. We are what makes your sport. We should have a bigger say that helps determine our financial future. Right now, we don't feel like we have that say, and we're the ones that are putting our livelihood, our money, our assets on the line. Whereas NASCAR, I've said it before, NASCAR is a very asset light company. They don't really own anything that shows up. They provide the forum, they provide, coordinate the purse and the rules and the officials, but NASCAR would be nothing if no teams showed up. And every one of those teams has to pay for a charter, has to pay for a car, has to pay for a driver, has to pay for a crew, has to pay for fuel, tires, parts, all that good kind of stuff. So the teams are much more highly leveraged and operating much more thinly in terms of margin, whereas NASCAR gets to sit back and reap the benefits of promo fees, sponsorship, TV rights, all that good kind of stuff. And they as teams, they just feel like they deserve more of a bigger cut of the pie, and then also a bigger say in their financial future.
Yeah, it's a very narrow way of thinking right now that NASCAR, and maybe it's not a surprise because things have really skyrocketed in just the last 20, 30 years for the sport.
Sure.
The first 20, 30 years, it was more of a underground sport, it felt. I mean, the average American when I was growing up really didn't pay attention to NASCAR.
Yep.
Even if it was on TV, I look at some of the old videos of some of the races on TV and the big moments in NASCAR. And I'm like, well, I don't remember any of that. You just didn't pay attention to it unless you were a NASCAR diehard fan. And those were basically fans from the South. That was it. You had, a very small center part of the country that followed the sport. And it wasn't until ESPN started to broadcast it. And really, that's, of course, what like you said, the whole money package deal, the revenue sharing, that's really what spurned all of this, was these big deals with the networks and all the money that is being given to NASCAR, and it's not being divvied out to any of the teams at NASCAR, which doesn't make any sense. So the bottom line is somebody at NASCAR, and I don't know, do you think they have, I don't know how the family is structured, but do you think they have somebody? I can't imagine it's a big group, a big family, can only be so many people that are at the top. So is there anybody there that can have common sense and understand some foresight about, okay, we've gone as far as we can go. We just can't get into that courtroom. We've got to submit. We've got to figure this out. We've got to, and I'm sure if they thought that way, this has been something that they've been thinking about. Hopefully they've already done that this is what we're ready to talk about. And hopefully they've gone that far, because if not, then it's going to be a longer process for everybody.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's gone this far, to be quite honest with you. I can't believe we're to the point where they're getting ready to seat a jury. I would have expected this to have been resolved a long time ago. I think both sides genuinely would have liked to have settled. But now I think NASCAR has pushed it and had its hubris for so long that they're at a point of being detrimental to themselves, because I do think, and we have to see how the trial goes and what the jury interprets and all that good kind of stuff. But I do think that NASCAR, because they've pushed it this far and to the point where we are now, in that we're just looking at the monopolistic point of view or the antitrust point of view, I do feel like NASCAR has harmed themselves. So I think the time for cooler heads and coming to a solution may have passed, because at this point, 23XR and FRM probably think that they're in a really strong position. So what incentive do they have to settle? I feel like that time probably was 2-3 months ago, if not even further. Maybe back at the time in the middle of the season when NASCAR said, okay, well, we'll at least guarantee you as open teams to have a starting spot, even though you don't have the charters now. We'll at least capitulate on that. That was the opening for a settlement and them starting to be more level-headed. But here we are, 3-4 months later, and we're getting ready to go to trial.
Yeah, and that's a sign right there that at this point it's not looking good, that there really is anybody running NASCAR that really understands how to get out of this the right way and how to settle this the right way and how to be a forward thinker. And look, I think it's going to be, it's like anything. It's like I'm hearing about the potential baseball strike that might be coming up again. And I'm like, you know what? And look, I dealt with this more harshly than anybody, because when it happened in 94, whatever it was, my team was the best team in baseball and had never been Montreal. And it ruined everything. And I said at the time, I'll take it as long as it helps the sport. And it never did. They basically wasted the season for nothing. They never figured out how, which is basically about what we're still talking about today, which is revenue sharing the right way and making sure that everybody's on a fair playing field. And so at this point now, as a baseball fan, I'm like, go. Strike, cancel the season for all I care, fix it, because baseball has got to fix what they haven't fixed yet. And I feel the same way about NASCAR, is that as much as I can't wait to get going again in February, if it's going to fix it and it's going to make the sport better, which I believe it will 100 times better, I think we all just have to just suck it up and just deal with it and just hope that it just happens quickly and we don't have to go through a long process of waiting. Because again, who knows? Like, again, what happens? I know everybody's just assuming everything's, oh, yeah, I got plans for the Daytona 500 in we don't even know if there's going to be a Daytona 500 in February, depending on this lawsuit.
Could be possible. I think the next question, should NASCAR end up losing this trial here, if it goes all the way to the end, is then what is the status for all the teams that have already signed on to the charter system? Do you have to rip that up? Do you have to renegotiate? And then to your point, if you have to do that, what is everybody competing under in February? There are 0 contracts at that point, or tons of question marks at best, perhaps. And I don't think that that's enough time to redraw a whole charter system or however NASCAR wants to approach it. So the money aspect of, putting your finances and team and company on the line to field a car become that much more difficult of a decision to make with things, with such big question marks in the air. I don't think it'll come to that. I think we'll still have a Daytona 500, but it could look very different in terms of the competitive landscape, who qualifies, who doesn't, how many open entries there are, who's, racing to get in versus who isn't. Whereas,
for instance, we've got we're still waiting for the new system next year, the new playoff system.
Yeah. And they're not.
This is obviously going to be, if they come out today and say, this is our new system, well, I'm not really going to, all right, we'll talk about it and so forth. But if it doesn't sound like it's a system that we really like, you might as well just throw it in the garbage. Because once this ruling comes about, the whole thing about this ruling, like you said, is about cooperation. And you've got to bring everybody's got to be in on that, everything, including what's the playoff system going to be like? And so once you do that, then they're going to all of a sudden, the next week, you're going to rip that up and come out with a whole new system based on everybody cooperating together.
Yeah, so. That's an excellent point. I wasn't even thinking about that. I was focused just on getting the season started. But yeah, the NASCAR has still not said what the championship format's going to be next year. They're not ready to announce it yet. And to your point, this decision could impact exactly what that winds up being.
Yeah, I do hope that, again, like I said, I've been down this road just way too many times, and I just hope fans realize that this, is there going to be a Daytona 500 in February? Most likely, probably, but just beware. Just don't guarantee it. Anything can happen after this trial, anything. And I really do believe it's going to be, it could be that catastrophic that we could have a lot changing between now and February. So I hope it's enough time. I think it is. I know there will be a lot of changes, but we've got a few months, and you just got to, once the ruling is put down, then, you basically get into a room and you fix it, and you get into a room 12 hours a day until you fix it. And I would think for the next 2 or 3 months, they'd be able to fix it. I don't think they're that far apart. It's just a matter of coming to an agreement on certain things. And hopefully we won't see it the way it's played out a lot of times in other sports, where we got to, have one side come out and say, they're like, we'll have reporting from the meetings. And you'll see, of course, one side coming out and the other side coming out, talking about this, talking about that. And we're like, all right, would you please just figure this out so we can move on? And that might be what we have to deal with. So we'll see.
And it might even go race by race. I mean, it's all speculation at this point, but maybe they just agree on something for the first race and continue working on it and do a race by race thing. But
I hope not. Yeah, that would be pretty. Yeah, and, right. If they wait that long, they might not have any alternative, because they don't want to miss a race and screw up the schedule. I'm sure they'll all see eye to eye on that. So, all right. So again, if something big happens, then we will definitely be back to talk about it. No question about it. So stay tuned for that. We're still going to talk some F1 here. But again, for NASCAR fans, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that. This way you don't miss what we have to say, if you care at all. Of course, a lot of it has to do with the fact that many of our viewers come to us for our handicapping videos and things of that nature. But This also is something that we are very passionate about, something that we have talked about for many years, even before Proline. So I think we're going to have some really cool shows next year after this lawsuit is finished, because again, I think we have a good feeling of where it's going. I think we have a good feeling of who's going to win. And I think that's all going to be good for us in the long run. And I think that's going to open up a whole bunch of different possibilities that I think will be positive. And I think that'll give us a lot of good content to talk about all season long. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed. All right. So let's wrap it up with F1. And we have a race in Las Vegas, which is this Saturday night?
It'll be Saturday night. Yeah. Around, I think, 11 o'clock Eastern, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. And Max Verstappen is the favorite. Lando Norris, George Russell.
Yep.
Is third, Charles Leclerc, Antonelli. And look at who's all the way down at 11-1. Oscar Piastri.
That's a really good gamble to take right now. We've seen the first practice. It was interrupted. Piastri was actually pretty quick. Norris topped the second practice. Verstappen was a little bit slower than we'd like him to be. But even before the cars hit the track, Las Vegas is a cold race. It's going to be likely the coldest race we've had so far this season. And we know that last year the Mercedes ran really well, dealt with the tire issues on a cold racetrack really well, avoided the graining, and George Russell ran away with that victory, which is why I think George Russell and Kimi Antonelli for Mercedes probably hold a little bit more weight this week than they otherwise would. However, I do think that McLaren worked really hard to solve their problems, and thus you see Lando Norris topping the timesheets as of last night in good position for this weekend.
So what would be your pick right now?
My pick right now would actually be Lando Norris or Oscar Piastri. Maybe wait to see. Right now, I think those odds that you had up, I would go with Piastri because he's not far off of Norris. And, flip the coin between the two McLaren drivers. They are extremely tight and have been all season. And yes, Piastri has been on more of a downslope the past 5 races or so. Norris has been the better of the two. But I think that is not going to last forever. The season is not going to end, I don't think, with Piastri on a low note. He's been pretty bad this weekend. So I think Piastri is the better bet from an odds perspective, but either of the two McLarens would be my top choices this weekend.
Okay. And there are the
so you're getting
odds
there. Yeah, you're getting a benefit there by going for McLaren at 200. Max Verstappen, he's going to be competitive. I think we'll see the true pecking order once qualifying comes out, but I do think that McLaren has the edge, and your dark horse probably would be Mercedes, just based on the fact that it's going to be a cold race. Mercedes has been pretty good in cold weather situations. And the reason why is in warmer situations, the tires actually melt consistently into the track, whereas in the cold, they tend to ball up and grain. Mercedes has been able to manage that a little bit better and have their wear over the tires be more even. So McLaren's improved on that. So I do think McLaren's a top choice, but Mercedes might be your dark horse this weekend.
Okay. And then it wraps up with what, 2 more races after this?
2 more races. We'll have Qatar Grand Prix next week, which will be the last sprint week. This week, in terms of the title chase, Max Verstappen could potentially be eliminated if Lando Norris leaves, I think, with 58 points ahead of Verstappen. Verstappen would be eliminated from the championship. If everything goes Lando Norris's way in the sprint race in Qatar, would be the first opportunity for him to clinch the championship.
Okay.
But then after we go to Qatar for the last sprint race weekend, we go to Abu Dhabi the final week or the next week after that, which will be the final race of the season.
Well, if one thing I will say that, and it's not easy in any sport, especially NASCAR. Now, maybe they'll change the system, and it looks like they will. So it'll be a little bit more, I shouldn't say easier, but it probably will be. And that's the unfortunate thing is figuring out who's going to win a championship in any sport. Very difficult. You don't know, even if you think you've got one team in another type of sport, football, whatever, is better than another team. You still don't know. Even though you're getting better odds than NASCAR or especially F1. But the fact is, over the 2 years that we've talked about F1 championships, I will say that next year I'm probably going to invest pretty heavy depending on how things are going, because it's pretty straightforward. And I don't think they've caught up. We saw it again this year with them overrating Max Verstappen. Now, again, you could always get pie in your face and something could happen that has never happened before. But those are the odds you deal with, and that's why nothing is guaranteed. But in this day and age of wagering and trying to find angles and value and all that kind of stuff, I don't think there's maybe a sport out there that I've covered that makes more sense, even though you've got to invest a lot in order to bring back a lot. But it's pretty straightforward. And I think that, and of course you do a great job of making sure that the viewers understand that, because pretty much we've been 2 for 2 now on figuring out how this whole F1 championship deal is going to work out, and how you're going to be able to invest and make money on championships, and when to do it and what to stay away from. So, yeah.
Totally agree. And I think 26 provides an opportunity for people to make a lot of money, whereas it's been a little bit difficult. You said correctly that it's been straightforward and you've had to make big investments, but it does go pretty linearly in the way that we've been looking at it and been advising people to go. And like you said, we've been right 2 times now out of 2 years. Next year is the rule change. So I think, prior to the season, prior to cars getting off on the track, there are going to be a lot of questions, but I think that linearness of where to go, we're going to know significantly earlier in the season than we have this past 2 years. And we're going to be able to guide you to some pretty good, lucrative wagers as the season goes on. So I'm very optimistic about our chances of making more money in Formula One in 2026. But yeah, if you'd listened to us last year, we would have had you on the Max Verstappen bandwagon early, which would have gotten you some money. And then this year we would have gotten you off of the Max Verstappen at the appropriate time so that you would not have lost money.
Yeah. All right. So that's going to wrap it up. You're going to have, now today is Friday. So do you have a report already available at RotoWire?
Yeah, we'll have reports up for rotowire.com. We'll put the link in the video. I'll send that over. And then we'll also have them for Qatar and Abu Dhabi to close out the season in the next 2 weeks as well.
So check out rotowire.com. Follow CJ over there for the next couple of weeks. Again, unless something crazy happens, this is going to be it as far as handicapping races for F1. It looks like the championship race is all but over. And we will return hopefully in 2026 at some point. I'm sure we'll be around probably the end of January, early February, the latest, depending again on what happens here with the lawsuit. But I would guarantee that we would be on the air at some point in the next month after we find out what happens with the lawsuit, because where it's going, what we anticipate it's going, should be big news for the sport, major news for the sport, and we'll be here to make sure we update you on all of that. So, CJ, appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You got it. Thanks for checking us out once again here at Proline TV. And don't forget, of course, we've got all sorts of other sports going on, even with the football season ending, especially college basketball. That will really be taking over a lot of our time, but still a lot of football to go, and horse racing as well. So check out Proline TV for a bunch of other sports that hopefully you're into, not just motorsports. And then we'll see you again in 2026 when we handicap more F1 and NASCAR.